All right, and we are live on the PHU Dynasty podcast. It's episode 56, and we are here with your league champion, Sean O'Shea, the general manager of the Lake Lure Long Gamers. What an unbelievable season. I don't really have words for how well your roster came into shape this year. Um, Sean, how you feeling?
Feels good. Love getting introduced as champ. Love to hear that. Um, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. It was like my team was just deep enough and had just enough top end to get me there. So super excited, man. Ready to come back and do it again next year as the title.
Yeah, man, that was a hell of a run, and I think just the championship game as a whole too ended up being a pretty solid game. It went kind of back and forth. It felt like, I mean, with the early games, um, it felt like James had the upper hand, and then you came screaming back with those Saturday games, and it was a hell of a time. But really, let's start kind of right at the top with that championship performance. The 47 burger from Lamar Jackson. I mean, that's what your stud player has to do in a stud moment, and he certainly did it.
I I feel like I manifested that game with the moves that I've made in the last year because I had Dak
Well,
traded
you
even
feel
though he
some
was on
confidence in him.
I I had Dak. He was on a like as soon as I traded him, he took off and was great for Vince's team the rest of the season. Before the season started, I traded away Fields, who had a great year previous. I
True.
kept telling myself, I was like, I can have these guys who have value and question, but not really question whether I'm going to start Lamar Jackson over them because if you have Lamar Jackson, you're going to start him. So what
You
am I
can't,
doing with these other guys?
you can't bench him. I
If I'm
mean,
if I'm trying to compete for a championship, I might as well use that value somewhere else. And so I just moved in, manifested it till got Lamar Jackson's here. I told him, hey man, this is it. This is
you're
the
the
move.
guy.
You're the guy.
You're the guy. I mean, he had a phenomenal season. Finished as the fourth ranked quarterback for the year. Finished the season actually with a 20, a 26, and a 47, and I'm sorry, a week 14 of 38 as well. So he really, turned it on when it mattered. And he kind of had a rough stretch towards the middle of the year with a 13, 11, a 15, a 16, but then really turned it on after the bye week against the Rams
Yeah, the
with
middle of the
that
season
38.
was just like a little bit of turnovers, a little bit of working through the new offensive system because they didn't play like any preseason really at all. So some growing pains in that, but he definitely looks like it's even now, like coming into the playoffs, like they look dangerous. They look like I think for whatever reason the Niners are the favorite, the Super Bowl favorite, but I don't know, man. Baltimore beat them already. I'm surprised they're not.
No, I like the Ravens, and with Lamar, I mean, this was his best statistical season since his MVP season, where he threw for 36 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, which was a crazy year. But he's back closer to that now with 24 touchdowns, 7 picks this year, but had 800 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground. And without Gus Edwards, who know how many more touchdowns he could have got?
Yeah, you mean RB 15 on the year, Gus Edwards?
I just there's no logic.
Makes
he,
no sense.
he's the Lenwale White. He's the new guy. He's the new Lendale
It,
White.
it's crazy because like he was so in such a run heavy offense the year he won the MVP, and like I mean he's gonna win it again this year. I think the final odds were like minus like 10,000 for him to win. But it's so crazy because he did it in such a completely different way this year, which is almost more impressive that you can win a second MVP, but almost look like a not a completely different player, but like very much like more mature as a quarterback.
Yeah, he looks just I don't know what the word like he just looks better this year. I mean, it's
Poised.
just yeah, like it just it's more pleasing to watch for some reason. Like he looks like he's never under duress, and even when he is, it just looks like he's more confident this year. So I mean, you got to hope that um, Todd Monken stays around at least another year before potentially getting a head coaching job because the momentum is there. I feel like this was kind of still a transition year, and they're still playing so well. So even next year, could be even better.
Yeah, that's true. There's so many good head coaching candidates out there. It might be good for him to wait a year anyway.
Yeah, this is a crazy coaching cycle. I mean, I didn't really have anything planned to talk about it, but we definitely should because there is some dynasty implications there. I mean, I can't ever remember there being this many like quality coaching candidates out there. Not even from the ranks of the coordinators that are getting their first shot, but we're talking Vrabel, you're talking Pete Carroll, you're talking Bill Belichick, you're talking. I mean,
Harbaugh.
there's just Harbaugh. There's just so much NFL proven talent, which that just has not really happened. At least, and if it hasn't happened in this much quantity
Yeah,
ever.
that's true. I mean, it's a quarter of the league right now, right? 8 teams that have a vacancy. So, um,
Makes
yeah, it's
the
crazy. I think,
Cowboys' decision to keep McCarthy look pretty stupid.
yeah, it's nothing. I don't think anything has come out about Sirianni yet. Like local, the
Yeah,
local Philadelphia reporters seem to think that he's going to be safe, but I don't know. It's weird that Lori hasn't come out and said anything yet. But no, before you, yeah, just effect on like dynasty football and fantasy football. Like I think Harbaugh is the one that's really going to be like a needle mover, depending on what team he goes to, because he's really the only proven offensive like head coach I think out there. You got like Ben Johnson and like you got what's his
Slowick.
name, Bobby Slowick, but they haven't been head coaches before. Harbaugh's kind of a proven thing, so like if he ends up, it seems like he's going to end up at the Chargers.
That's kind of what I'm
Betting
thinking. I
for it.
mean, I haven't heard
Dude,
anything
that's
else.
great. That's great for the Chargers.
Yeah, I
You
mean, I
get like,
think the whoever gets Harbaugh, the whatever the running game is going to get a bump up. He's always been known for pounding the rock, so it would be interesting if he went to the Chargers because they kind of really don't have that right now. I think Eckler's a free agent potentially,
yeah, if they
so
don't have that, they don't have a culture. There's like two things right in
yeah.
one from Harbaugh.
I mean, it'd be interesting if they end up drafting a running back or picking up, like a Barkley or something like that, or some crazy. But they don't have a whole lot of cap space, so I'm not sure if that's even possible. But it'll be an interesting offseason depending on where he goes. And then another one that seems like it's becoming more likely by the hour is Bill Belichick potentially going to the Falcons. Every time I keep looking on Twitter, it seems like he's linked more heavily there, and it really makes sense because he has close ties with Arthur Blank, and it kind of it just adds up.
Yeah, I hope Bijan likes being in a running back committee.
I mean, he's already done it for the first year, so I mean, I don't know. It's going to be weird because it's another team without a quarterback, but Belichick, you'd have to imagine they'd go out and find somebody.
Yeah, I mean they've got what pick do they have? 8? I think they're at 8, right?
They're at pick 8, and frankly, there's no possibility of them trading into the top 3. I just don't see it happening.
You don't think so?
No, if you just like think about the layout of the top 3 picks, right? So your first pick is Chicago. They're probably not trading down, taking Caleb Williams. Then number 2, you have the Commanders, who are
Fields available.
probably not trading down. Probably they're probably taking a quarterback. And then 3 is the Patriots. And do you think that Robert Kraft is going to trade that pick to Belichick if he goes to the Falcons?
That's
Probably
true.
not.
That's
So then you're at 4. That's your first opportunity. It's Arizona. So like they could get up to 4 if they wanted to take one of the other quarterbacks potentially. But
if if Daniels doesn't go 3, I think that probably comes more into like available or more likely that could happen. But if it's 1, 2, 3 quarterback, I don't. Yeah, I could see.
I'd be shocked if it wasn't. I mean, and that's
Yeah,
I still think Marvin Harrison should go over Jaden Daniels, depend like on just talent alone, but it's
that's
just a
where.
quarterback need.
Yeah, that's where a lot of the mocks I've seen right now are is Marvin Jones at 3. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. You really got to filter through all of like the quarterback movement first before you like because free agency comes before the draft or after the draft.
It does. It's March, so I mean, I feel like the big one is going to be who trades for Justin Fields. I could see that being like an Atlanta Falcons situation.
It could be them. It could be the Patriots, and then they take Marvin Jones at 3.
Marvin Harrison, but we love Marvin
Sorry,
Jones.
Marvin. Yeah, sorry.
Did I say
We love
Marvin Jones
Marvin
first?
Jones. We're pro Marvin
Did I
Jones.
start that? Oh, we got a comment. It's got to be about Marvin Jones. I know Justin just likes the armadillo's hat. Anywho, yeah. So like, I feel like for the Patriots, I'm not sorry, not the Patriots, but for Belichick and the Falcons if he ends up going there. I feel like Fields or maybe a Kirk Cousins signing makes a lot of sense. I can't imagine that Arthur Blank wants to sit around and wait for another rookie quarterback. He's 82. Like he wants to win, I'm sure. So
I could see them bringing in like McDaniels as OC and bringing back Brissett too.
that could be like a decent like competition, guy.
Yeah, I think that's like the baseline of what you're going to get there.
Like a Fields Brissett competition would be interesting.
Yeah, if not just like one of them. I mean, Brissett looked great when he played. So.
He's always been pretty solid. He's just he's just a solid player. Anywho, let's continue down with your roster here on the championship game. Kyron Williams with a 28 burger, literally just, I mean, he's got to be one of the catalysts for this championship run, right? I mean, this is
that's the big move, man. That was it. That's the one I think that put me over the top. That gave me a chance and got me there.
Right. Yeah, and those for those following along at home, it was Kyron Williams for Dak Prescott, a 25 fourth round pick, and then a 25 third round pick. So not a lot to give up, all things considered. I mean, he got you the championship. It seems like a win of a trade. So, and then he's only 23 years old. So there's plenty of wheels or tread left on the tires here, as you might say. So
yeah, I don't see how he's not a RB1 and redraft next year off the board. So
I mean, he's so cheap too. I mean, he's on a 5th round contract. There's no chance that I have a hard time believing they're going to invest any pick in a high running back. There's just no way.
Yeah, they really need help on their back 7. So I imagine a lot of the guys going to go there. They might take a quarterback too.
They also need some offensive line help. They are getting old on defensive line. They have a lot of other ways they could go. I think they might bring in like a depth running back, but that's about it. Like, I mean, they don't have a whole lot behind him at this point. So, and then let's go down to another top performer, Amon-Ra St. Brown, the number 3 wide receiver on the year, the sun god. He had 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns, 164 targets. His targets have gone up every single year. He was a great 2nd round pick, Sean. 207, one of the best in the league.
It's got to be my best draft pick. It's him or Lamar. Because I took Lamar at 310. So
I mean, that's another wonderful pick. But I mean, I think it's so hard to hit on top 5 receivers, at all. So to get him in the 2nd round, I think I'd give the edge to Amon-Ra as of right now. He's played phenomenal football, and I think he'll be a mainstay on your team for a long time. And frankly, your team kind of needed that little youth boost at the receiver position. So that really worked out for you. Let's go down. All right. So Tyreek Hill kind of sputtered a little bit towards the end of the year, but he was, injured. And
he got me the seed.
He got you to where you needed to be. Exactly. He got you that bye week. And then on top of that, he pretty much averaged what seems to be 14 targets a game, which is just insanity. And he has shown no signs of slowing down. So you're going to get him back next year. He's going to be a stud next year again. And that trade for you following at home, 2021 was Tyreek Hill, 2 first-round picks and a 2nd in Paris Campbell. So I think he was well worth the cost to get you where you needed to go, and still stands at this point. So not a whole. I'll be honest with you, Sean. Not a whole lot of other like super great performers on this championship week. It was a big.
It was top heavy.
A big Lamar Jackson, Kyron Williams week, if you might say. But we shouldn't overlook some of these other contributors here. Devin Singletary, a quiet, solid year. In a year that was supposed to be Dameon Pierce's year, it turned out to be a Devin Singletary show. He I forgot about the 30 carry game at Cincinnati. 30 carries for 150 and a touchdown. That was pretty wild. Finished the year as RB 29, but really didn't play really at all for the first 7 weeks of the year prior to getting that kind of starter type role. So, he finished with just over 4 yards a carry, which is pretty much his normal for the year. But another great little add-on pickup there from a trade back in 2019. Listen to this trade.
Oh, wait, let me see if I remember it.
Hold on. Let's do it.
So I traded Boyd
You did.
And I know I got Singletary and a first-round pick back.
You did a 2020 first-round pick.
What else was in that trade? Was there any other picks in that trade?
No, there was one other pick, but it went to James.
It's like a third-round pick?
It was a third-round pick. And then there was also 2 quarterbacks swapped in this trade.
I sent him Derek Carr.
You did. And you received Owen Tippett.
What?
Just think Owen Tippett.
Ready? Oh, Andy Dalton?
Andy Dalton? I didn't want to give it away. Those are for the hockey fans out there. Yeah, that's a fun trade. So it basically was Singletary, Dalton a first. Singletary, Dalton a first for Carr, Boyd and a third. So
yeah, that was because James ended up winning that year. So it was pick 110. And I ended up using that as part of the trade to move up, and I ended up having the top 2 picks where he took Taylor and Clyde the next year.
Now I want to find out who that first-round pick was. Please hold out there. I'm looking it up. I'm going to the draft results. 2010.
T. Higgins?
It could have been a Denzel Mims. That's what I'm really hoping it is.
It went to Alex, and I'm pretty sure it was Higgins.
I'm almost there. Please hold. All right. 4 rounds. Oh, this is the supplemental draft. I hate how they do that. It was T. Higgins. You are absolutely correct.
Bam.
But he was picked behind Denzel Mims.
Bam. Well, we don't need to talk about all the picks Alex
and Justin Jefferson.
Yes.
But that's besides the point.
Was that wasn't the Trevor Lawrence year, was it? That was the next year.
I think that might have been the Lawrence year.
I
just closed it. That'll be part of the trade tree show.
Lawrence was the Waddle and Devontae Smith year. I'm pretty sure.
That was a great year. That was a lot of talent that draft.
Good receiver draft. Almost as good as this receiver draft coming up. Can't wait to talk about it in future weeks.
Yes, we have lots of excellent draft talk lined up, and this is going to be a very strong offensive draft. So it'll be a fun one for sure. Sean, out of all the players on your team, we know who the big, top performers are, and like the MVPs quote of your team. But give me like a couple of guys that were maybe not as heralded, maybe like a Devin Singletary type player that you really were impressed with.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 guys, Singletary is definitely one of them. He came in, like, I think scheme-wise for the Texans, it just ended up working out that he was just a better fit halfway through the year, which is no complaints here. Came in, I got some solid starts out of him. And then another guy, got to be Courtland Sutton. He had such a weird year, but I just kept starting him, and he just kept getting like 1 or 2 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown, like every time I started him.
He was very quality. I mean, it was basically just touchdown fest with him.
Mm-hmm.
Going back and looking at his stats, he had there was only 1, 2, 3, 4 games before he got injured that he did not have a touchdown. So he had touchdowns pretty much in 12 weeks, 10 weeks. I mean, that's just insane.
Yeah, he made it a little weird for me because I'll have like better matchups, and I was like, do I play Sutton? He only had like 3 targets, but he scored last week. So like, I'm asking myself, do I start this guy like every week? But I just rode the train, man. Just let it happen.
He's the Gus Edwards of wide receivers.
Yeah. And then just a championship shout out to Dallas Goedert because he was the superior tight end in the matchup of shitty tight end teams. And I think he got 10 something.
He got 10. He has 47 yards and a touchdown.
Bam. So,
very nice.
Amazingly, one of our teams put up double-digit points from the tight end position. So,
yeah, Dallas Goedert has never cracked the top 9 tight ends.
He never plays a full season.
That is accurate. He's never played a 17-game season, and his average target, he's never gotten over 100 targets. So he's just there basically.
He's your middle of the field yak tight end in an offense that has shifted away from like what he's good at the last couple of years. So it's tough. We'll see how it goes. I don't really want to keep talking about the Eagles because I feel like all I've listened to is like sad Eagles fans the last few days. But I will say one thing. What the hell is anybody doing interviewing Brian Johnson for a head coaching job?
That was shocking.
What in the actual fuck?
And why would it, like, I think it was the Falcons, wasn't it?
And the
Panthers or something like that. I don't remember. I just remember I clicked on the comment section on one of those posts that said, like, we interviewed Brian Johnson. and everybody in the comments is like, "Why?"
Like, I
It was
guess,
just like, "What are we doing here?"
is he just getting Rooney ruled? Like, what is happening?
And then there was another comment that said, "Are we trying to get AC/DC to be halftime performers because of Brian Johnson's the name of their singer?" I was like, "No." It's like this. No, it's just a shitty offensive coordinator. I don't know. I don't. I think maybe he's just got that pull, where it's kind of like you were from a historically good team, and it just maybe like, for example, I think that Panthers DC. I don't know how to say his name. Well, it's got two E's in it, but the defensive coordinator, he's getting interviewed as well quite a bit,
Yeah,
and I just
their
don't
defense
see
was
it.
good though.
They were solid. They weren't like trash. But I don't know. I'm just not. He's not a very inspiring candidate. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, Gino Evero. That's
That one.
yeah.
That's the one.
I
Yeah.
actually I kind of like him. Not gonna lie,
I
I
don't know much
like him
about
a
him,
lot
but
more than I like Brian Johnson. That's for sure. But
I think Brian Johnson's
I
good.
and what's even crazier is that, like, he, given everything, given the personnel on either side of the ball, I think we did a worse job on offense this year than we did defense. The
The
defense was
offense was
fucked.
not good, Sean. It was
The,
not good. I
the
mean,
defense is fucked
as
personnel
a
wise.
Jalen Hurts owner,
No,
it just felt weird. The whole offense felt weird.
he definitely played with like a sprained ligament in his knee half of the season because he just didn't want to go. He
I just
never
think
wanted to move.
it
He
just
was
didn't work.
he would try and get the edge, and he would literally just slide sideways or like backwards. Like,
Yeah,
I'm like, what? He
I
was,
knew he was banged up throughout the year. I just didn't realize like what extent it actually was. I'm sure we'll find out. Like, oh, he's playing with a whatever or
yeah.
something like that.
They did exit interviews, and I think they have to do medical stuff like after that. So I'm sure that'll all come out in the next couple days.
Yeah, we got plenty of time for Eagles trash talk later in the year.
I could talk for 2 hours on everything they did wrong.
Yeah, it was truly one of the most disappointing years you could think of. Based on they started 10-1, right?
Yep.
I mean, yeah, that's insane. And then we can quickly shout out here. James, a good season. Maybe just fell a little bit short here, but really a spirited effort from Baker Mayfield taking over for Justin Herbert, and I think really maybe the deciding factor in this game, but with you and him, Christian McCaffrey only getting 9 points. That's not
The
quite.
McCaffrey injury, that was like the probably the deciding factor in that game. Like, it would have either been
It would have been closer,
very
that's
close,
for sure.
very, very close. So, but I mean, that's happened for and against all of us, I think, at this point in fantasy football. So you just
Yeah,
gotta.
when you've been playing as long as we have, everybody's seen it at some point.
I was looking up the like final rankings and stuff for players, and I was comparing them to like my preseason ranks that I did just for shits and giggles to see how I did. There were only 20 other running backs that put up more than half of McCaffrey's points this year.
Wow, that's insane. That is
So
truly insane. I mean, he was otherworldly
RB,
this year.
let me see if I pull up real quick.
I mean, he was RB1. He had 1,400 yards rushing, added an extra 600-ish yards receiving. So he's 2,000 total yards. And then he had 7 touchdowns receiving, 14 on the ground. So 21. So 2,000 yards and 21 touchdowns. I mean, that's just stupid numbers.
Brian Robinson was RB 22.
Also James's team.
And also on James's team. And McCaffrey had twice as many points as him.
That's just insane.
The
running backs were really weird this year.
That's like what Kelsey was doing to tight ends in like years past. He's
pretty
doing
much
running back position. It's just insane.
He had 331 points.
It was 84, 85 more than Raheem Mostert, who was his second.
That's just absurd. It's absurd. 331 points. I'm trying to look to see where that would rank in the grand scheme of things. So he was number 11 for the year total with all positions. So he was almost cracked the top 10 of quarterbacks. I mean, that's just insane. He fell just short of Baker Mayfield, 10th overall player.
If you shift it to average points per game, the only person that's remotely close to him is Kyren Williams at 19 a game. McCaffrey had 20.7.
Unreal.
Crazy.
a great year for James for sure, and just fortunately just falls a little bit short. But this is gonna be an interesting offseason for James. I feel like he's definitely got some pieces to potentially run at it again, but also doesn't have a whole lot of draft capital, and it might be a situation where he maybe turns the page a little bit, not fully rebuilding or anything like that, but just maybe finding some value elsewhere and trying to retool a little bit.
I will say another. I don't know if it's a sneaky loss, but like he also had Tank Dell on his team, who was like on
Correct.
pace for 1,200 yards
Dude, he
as
was
a
nuts.
rookie. So I mean, that's a guy like he can keep him, he can move him, he could probably get a lot for him after watching what CJ Stroud is doing in the playoffs. So he's got stuff that he can do.
Yeah, he's definitely not stuck in the water. He's got plenty of like I feel like if you compare his team to like maybe Scavelli's, there's a lot more wiggle room with some of the assets he has. So, and we'll talk about all the teams ad nauseum in the later draft after the draft when we talk about all the team reviews. So that's actually a good segue into what I posted a couple days ago here, or maybe it was yesterday. It was yesterday. The podcast schedule. So I have kind of laid out maybe topics and discussions on pretty much everything I could think of for the next 6 months or so. I kind of wanted to have something laid out so that way when we, we can really research these things ahead of time, and then maybe for these debate episodes and other episodes we can have uh, guests be able to plan out their time and dates that they show up a little bit easier. And on top of that, I think it'll make for great content throughout the off season. I think the base idea I had was to do more podcasts, but maybe just a little bit shorter. Instead of the normal like hour and 15 minutes, maybe we'll go a little bit shorter, kind of what I had planned for today as well. Just to see if we can get more quantity out there for you guys. So as we get into February, we're going to start talking a lot more about the rookies. We'll also have like the Super Bowl and whatnot to talk about. So we'll get into that. The combine will also be in this time frame as well. And then once we get a little bit later into March, got some film things lined up for us to do. I'll have more details on that. I'm going to ask for everybody to maybe submit a couple of guys on their own team that they would like to have us watch on the show. That might be kind of fun as well. And then I'm trying once again to see if we can get Charlie Campbell on. I think everybody really enjoyed that last year, so we'll see if we can do something like that this year. And maybe I'll get some fan questions this time, so we'll get some input from around the league to see who has questions for Charlie, and if we can't do the happy hour that we maybe thought about, that might be a second alternative. So and then of course as we get past the rookie draft, then we'll start the team reviews. I feel like it's better to do that after the rookie draft. We can really get an idea of kind of where the landscape sits at that point. All the major trades should probably be done at that point as well. And then we'll be in the dog days of summer where we need content to talk about. So that's perfect for that. Really outside of that, I wanted to bring up one more thing on today's podcast, and that's kind of the rule change discussion. We've talked a little bit about some of the ideas that have been out there. So Sean, we can talk a little bit too about the playoff trade deadline. Seems like everybody kind of is feeling the week 14 vibe, if you will, for the date there. I'm thinking that makes a lot of sense. I could really go any direction, and it's just kind of what everybody else's consensus on. But it seems like that week 14 would be a good spot for that.
Yeah, no complaints for me. As long as everybody knows what it is and we're all kind of on the same page, I don't think it really matters too much what the rule is. But like I said, as long as we all know what's going on, we all know what's fair.
Yeah, and what's clearly defined. That's the most important part. Another idea that we also had presented was I presented the taxi squad idea. I still think I think that barely missed last year. I think it was a 6-4 vote, and it didn't make it last year. I still think there's some value there. I think in the other leagues I'm in, there's taxi squads, and I find it to be kind of a cool little wrinkle within your own roster, right? So, for example, I had in that league I had like Trey Palmer on my stash all year. I didn't really have any opportunities to really play him this year. There wasn't any weeks that's like, oh wow, I'm going to start Trey Palmer this week. So I kind of just left him in there all year. But that was, a guy in that league. Also, they have stealing. We won't be implementing that, but I was kind of worried somebody might steal him. So I always had to like think about it. So I think there's some opportunities for maybe a taxi squad to enter this league again, and it would be much easier this time than doing the Word document where it was like I have to go add people's names manually, like Julius Thomas and Jordan Cameron and all kinds of jackass names. God, I wish I could. I gotta find that list. It's on somewhere on Facebook of all the jackasses that were on the practice squads back there in the day, but that was impossible to deal with. So this should be much better.
Now, with that other league that you have a taxi squad in, is it similar roster size before the taxi squad, or do you have smaller rosters?
They are similar. I don't think they're quite as big. I think ours are 30, and I think those were like 26-ish, so it's not like totally off. But I do think that we do have a lot of roster spots as it is. Like I can see where you're going with that. So, maybe it doesn't need to be happen in our league, but I still think it might be kind of cool.
I think if we do, I think we'd maybe make sense to like eliminate like one roster spot, like at least at first, or like two, depending on like how everybody feels about it. I think just because of how many roster spots we already have.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I also like the idea of when we get down to like the roster cut time frame, the tough decisions that need to be made. I mean, like every year it seems like Dustin's cutting 45 people, like right before the start of the first game. And I kind of love that. So I don't want to expand the rosters too much per se, but I also, I think it'd be cool to like, okay, I have to make a decision. Am I going to stash this guy for the year? Or am I going to maybe this is a mid-season call-up kind of guy, or am I just going to just ride it out with an active roster spot?
It's like a holiday in our league whenever we know what day Dustin's going to drop all of his players.
I love it. I mean, I think I presented last year in the rule changes. I wanted a firm cut date. Like I wanted like how the NFL, you have to have a certain amount of cuts by 4 p.m. on whatever day. I wanted that because I thought it'd been fun to like just see the flurry of just 78 cuts coming in from all the teams, not just Dustin, but I want to see everybody cutting down because I think it would just be super exciting. So it would just add to the shit show.
Just got these random fantasy guys just handing us their virtual playbook.
We appreciate all you did for the team, but you didn't make the cut. There's going to be a couple like the annual Tommy Tremble cut is exciting. And then let's get to another one of these rule change discussions. Of course, kickers and defenses is a classic Dustin ad every single year.
We don't want you.
I'm about 50-50. I could go with keep them or leave them. I don't really care. I will say in other dynasty leagues I'm in, we do not have kickers and defenses, and I don't miss them. So it doesn't really move the needle for me.
I'm actually okay with defense special teams.
Yeah, like defense is good.
Kicking's dumb.
I don't know. It's just so random.
That's my analysis.
I know that James is having an aneurysm right now hearing us talk about this, but he does make a point. They score points. It's like it kind of. I could see the argument there too, though. They are valuable, technically offensive players. They are scoring points, so I don't know.
It's an interesting by that logic, we should start playing IDP. Like what?
Hey, don't start me on IDP. That would separate the boys from the men. We try. Sean, were you ever involved in the 53-man IDP league that we were in?
No, that sounds
that's so bad. We tried to do it on Flea Flickers. This is a trash website. It's the only one that would let me do it. I don't think so. But it was the only one that would let us do that big a roster. So we did it on there, and it lasted like 6 weeks. And everybody's like, I can't do this anymore. It's 53-man Dynasty League IDP, full team.
Yeah, I'd do IDP tomorrow if we wanted to do a league. I've never done one.
Submit it as a rule change.
I'm not going to submit that for our Dynasty League.
Submit it for Galactic or
It's
something.
going
Who
to
knows?
get.
I just want to see how many people vote for it.
God. He's never going to
3?
see this, but can you imagine trying to do an IDP league with Bryce in that league? Different Bryce, not the one that we're used to.
It would be challenging.
His head would explode.
Mike Sastre would just take all Bucks players.
Oh God, that's true. He
would have Marquise Watts on his team.
Who was the younger guy for the Bucks this year that he was all about? Who ended up?
Diaby.
Yeah.
No, he liked Marquise Watts. That was his guy.
Oh, I thought he was a Diaby guy.
I mean, he probably likes them both, but he loved Marquise Watts at the draft. That was his guy. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think IDP is coming anytime soon, Sean.
No.
Or we just replace. We could replace defenses with one IDP player, just one. Just pick a guy, pick a middle linebacker that gets a bunch of tackles. I just remember Luke Kuechly being like the ultimate IDP player because he would just jump on piles.
I don't know if it's an option for defense as part of the scoring, but you should get a point for stopping a team on 4th down.
I don't know if that's an idea. I mean, I do agree. I feel like that's a pretty big game-changing play.
It's a turnover.
It's basically a turnover, yeah. So you might as well just count it as a turnover. I don't know. Maybe I should look that up. I should see if that's an option.
It feels like very logical. Like it's a turnover on downs. You should get points for creating a turnover.
All right. Well, I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss any rule change discussions.
Oh, I'm not saying I'm submitting this one, but I can't remember what podcast I was listening to, but I had heard them talking about the picks for the teams that don't make the playoffs based off of whatever their potential points would have been for the year instead of what they started. But that was because they had guys that were like sandbagging lineups.
Mm-hmm.
But I just thought it was an interesting thing to do.
It is interesting.
If you've got guys that are like ever do that, I think that would be like maybe an option. But I think we're for the most part pretty ethical when we play. So
yeah, there's not a whole lot of issues in this league with jackassery. I feel like it's basically any league that Mike is in. Just that you have to worry about something like that. Last thing I'll discuss on the rule changes. One of my other ideas, I didn't really see any like super big feedback about it, but I had the idea of making the draft 7 rounds. So basically combining the rookie draft and the waiver draft into one large draft, with the stipulation of that the last 3 rounds, so rounds 5 through 7, cannot be traded and are not treated as tradable assets. Basically, the reason for that is every year I have to make a second draft, and then we have to get everybody to do the second draft. So it's just a little bit more of a logistical thing that would maybe make it easier on my end, and also would extend the draft fun to those who don't have picks, right? So like the folks that don't have a top 4 round pick, they could still be involved every single year, no matter what, with some of these waiver draft picks. And frankly, in recent years, we've had some really good waiver draft picks too that have contributed. So it's not like not really a downside to having anything put together, in my opinion. It's just a longer draft day, which I don't think anybody hates the idea of that. But also I can see the argument too, where others like having the separate waiver draft to kind of prolong it over a longer amount of time. But I can see it going either way. That was just kind of an idea I had.
I mean, I don't think it's really that big of a deal either way, but if it makes your life easier as commissioner, I would probably just vote for that.
I mean, it's not like the end of the world to have to do the waiver draft. But I do think from like a clerical standpoint, like whenever you go into draft results in Sleeper, it shows all the recent drafts, and every year we have 2 of them, right? So it says like 2023, 2023, and it's like, okay, which one's which? And you have to find which one it is to make sure you're getting the right one. So it's like it's not like annoying, but it is something that maybe could be done to, make things
like
more.
What does our draft take now? Like an hour?
It's 10 minutes a pick currently, but we have stopped it many times for.
I'm just talking about the 4 round rookie draft.
Yeah, so it's 10 minutes a pick. So you got
Is it really? Oh shit.
yeah, it's always been 10.
Hmm.
And it's been that way for quite a while. We kind of blaze through the first like 5 to 10 ish picks, and then as soon as it gets to like 2 and 3, there's always trade discussions and stuff. So I like the length, and we have had to pause it a couple of times for like longer trade discussions and stuff like that. So um, I think if we make it kind of a draft day is truly an event like it always is, you know, I don't think adding 3 rounds, and even we could even shorten the length of those 3 rounds as well for the waiver draft. Could just make them 5-minute clocks or something like that. And since they're not tradable, there shouldn't be any trade discussion on those anyway. So it should be pretty fast. So I'll submit that, and if you guys are interested, then we can do that. But I think I did something similar last year where I said add a round on to make it 5, and that did not pass. But that was because I didn't clarify that it wasn't tradable. So we'll see what happens this year. Speaking of the draft, the last thing I want to talk about before we head out is I'm just going to bring up on my other screen here, just kind of the draft layout. Now that we have the order set, we know who is picking where. I think it would be kind of interesting to go through this real quick. So let me pull this up. Let's see here. There we go. All right. So starting at the top, you have Justin Sr. and the Baton Rouge Bombers. Justin has all 4 of his original picks, as is Canadian tradition, or Baton Rouge tradition. It feels like he has those picks every single year. He never really moves them. But he's also added on a couple here. He's got my 1-7. He's got my 2-7, and then a 3-6 from Scavelli. I'm trying to remember where he acquired that pick from, but I can't off the top of my head. I think that was one of the ones I traded away. I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head. Anywho, Dustin Gilchrist. This is a big year for him in the Kentucky Elk. He's got 3 first-round picks, 1-2, 1-6, and 1-9. Also has 2-2, 2-6, and 2-9. And then rounds out with 3 thirds, which is low for him on the third-round picks, Sean. I feel like he usually has at least 4 or 5.
The War Room isn't going to know what to do with themselves in the third round. Only taking 3 players.
I think you could see a trade down from 2-9 to pick up some more thirds. I think it's always an option.
It's always an option.
Let's see. Oh, Tibbs has multiple thirds. So there you go. There's your trade partner. This is a big year for Dustin in the draft. That he's got to really start this rebuild. He's got 3 this year. I believe he has at least 3 or 4 next year. So this is going to be a pretty big start for him. Vince has traded both his first and second round pick to me. He does have his 3-3 and 4-3 available to him. So he'll pick later on. Alex, no picks for this year or next year. So we'll see how that. I think Alex will vote in favor of the extra waiver draft just so he can do something on draft day. And then Dan Schwartz is in the same boat. Absolutely no picks for this year, which is crazy that we have 2 people with no picks in this draft. And then Scavelli has a 2-4 from Alex, and then a trio of 4th-round picks. So not a whole lot of draft capital for Scavelli. We'll talk more about that as we get closer to the draft, but Scavelli is in desperate need of a youth movement, and there's not a whole lot of capital to do that right now. So it'll be interesting to see how he ends up utilizing his assets. And then this year I have 4 first-round picks, 3, 4, and 5. In a year in which I made the playoffs is pretty fun. I'm excited. This is going to be a big year for the Armadillos because I feel like we've done a pretty good job of, getting the core of the team together this year, and then we're only going to be adding to it. So it should be a lot of fun, and I can't wait. I actually, real quick, Sean, this year is going to be a super fun year. I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but the Shrine game and the Senior Bowl this year will be loaded with great players. So I'm going to be very in tune this draft offseason, as I always am.
They're letting juniors play?
I think they let the juniors play if there is some I think if they're a red shirt, they're allowed to play.
And you're a junior.
Correct. And if they have some sort of like injury thing, they'll sometimes let him play. Like there's some stipulations in which they'll let him do it. But I think the big shoe to drop that nobody knows yet is if Jaden Daniels is going to end up going, because he is a senior, but he might just say screw it.
I mean, his stock is going to be at the combine with how athletic he is. I feel like that's going to
Yeah,
be the thing that really does it for him. If it's going to shoot him up to 3 or not, or maybe 2. I don't know. We'll see. I've heard a couple of people mention that. But
and I think Michael Penix has accepted the invite as well, so that'll be a good time for him. But yeah, it's loaded at receiver and tight end and running back this year, so it should be super fun to watch all that. So I will be paying attention.
Yeah.
And quarterback, yes. All right, let's go to Tibbs. Tibbs has now finally slowed down a little bit on his drafting. He has all of his original picks, and then he also has 3, 5, and 4, 10. So, yeah, I mean, if you just look at Tibbs' team, it's looking pretty damn good for the future here and even next year. So, it's time to start making moves for him, and it'll be a fun time to see what he does with all of his assets on draft day. I feel like that's not going to be the only thing you see off of Tibbs' team on draft day, but we'll get closer to that and figure it out. Then you got James, who annually seems to have 3, 10, 4, 9, something in that range. So he's got 3, 10, 4, 9 this year, as is tradition. And then Sean, you just got 4, 5 this year, which is not a problem for you because you got that championship.
We're gonna make it count.
It's gonna be the next Lamar Jackson.
I do need to probably get another quarterback. That's very true.
Yeah, I mean, you got Goff, but yeah, Huntley is your third. I mean, he's not unless I mean he basically is your backup, so it's a handcuff. So, but it's Tyler Huntley. You can have worthy backup.
Yeah, see if I can find like a good rookie. That's probably not going to end up being one of the top 3 guys. So,
yeah, I mean, it's a deep one. You might get a sneak in, Michael Penix in the 4th round. You never know.
Yeah, him, McCarthy, Nix, one of those guys. One of those guys will probably be there.
Spencer Rattler.
No, I'm good on Spencer Rattler.
Yeah. Hey, the Spencer Rattler slander has gone too far, in my opinion. He's not that bad. All right, so we'll wrap this one up here, 45-ish minutes. Sean, just want to give you another giant congratulations on your first PHU Dynasty Championship. I know it's got to be a great feeling for you. So we're very happy for you, and we'll see if you can run it back next year.
I'm gonna have to get some merch or something, huh?
Yeah. So that's actually, we can discuss that somewhat quickly here. So you will be getting your first trophy, which will be the jersey. So I'll get with you very soon to start working on that. Do you have somebody in mind that you would like as your on the jersey? I assume it would be Lamar or Kyron, maybe.
That's a good. I'll have to think about it.
Yeah, you don't have to answer me now, but it's a discussion that needs to be had because you gotta have somebody on there.
Mm-hmm.
So, anywho, yeah, that'll be a thing, and then merchandise we can always talk about. But I'm actually gonna post something during maybe the dogger days of the summer with like merch options. I have a pretty good place now that can do all the stuff that we need. I know Scavelli got his merch from the draft competition last year. Dustin got a shirt. I think James has shirts. Everybody's kind of indulging at this point. So I'll make sure that there's more options out there. But the options are getting more widespread now. So I will say, if your T-shirt might not be enough. If you want a teddy bear for the little ones, perhaps, or maybe a mouse pad or something, there's plenty of options out there. There's sort of water bottles. I've seen it all out there now. So bumper stickers, anything you want, we got it here. So the PHU Dynasty needs its own merch store at this point.
Really
all right, so we'll wrap it up there. Thanks for watching, and I believe we're going to see you guys next on, I'm going to look at the schedule, next week. It'll be the 25th, which will be next Thursday, and we're going to talk about the survey results, and we're going to do some league awards. So, Sean, I will reach out to you during the week, and we'll start getting some league awards that we'll present on next Thursday.
I might do a live podcast from Disney World. All right.
Well, hey, We could always move these dates around, Sean. That's the thing is this is a base schedule, and we can always make it work for whoever. We could always bring on other people as well too. So we got options out there. All right, so we'll leave you there, and thanks for watching.